It's the Bolt Action 3rd Edition week here on Tabletop, and with a comment, you could win one of 3 Battle of the Bulge starter sets. We will pick 3 winners, one from the YouTube comments, one from the comments on OnTableTop.com, and one from our Cult of Games members. So you guys get an extra chance to win.
Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. Today I'm joined by Peter Dennis, the legendary artist that many of us will have grown up with, to talk a bit about Bolt Action 3rd Edition, the work he's done there, and his wargaming hobby and background more generally as well. So it's great to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
So we'll kick things off with why everybody's here, which is Bolt Action 3rd Edition. It's a honking book. Page count is around about 300 pages, and you're responsible for 27 chapter illustrations, which is an awful lot.
Pages that I contributed to the book are taken from old Ospreys. All I did new for this book really are 2 figures and the diagonal background strip for the piece, which it came. I got quite a bit of warning about it, but it just came in the usual flow from Osprey. Mm-hmm. Although I've retired now from Osprey, apart from doing some stuff with Bolt Action, John Stallard. In fact, I'm sitting at the table that John Stallard and Paul Sawyer sat at when they came to see me, right at the very beginning of Warlord. And they expressed a sort of wish for a sort of comic dynamic to the artwork, comic book, rather than humorous comic. Yeah. I've always tried to carry that through into Bolt Action, although from time to time it just seemed absurd. And I just did a piece for winterized Americans. They've got a new big box coming out.
Yes.
And I said to John Stallard, here's the usual piece of absurd sort of close quarters shooting. That's where everybody's in the last few seconds of their lives. And he said, there's no such thing as too much shooting. So I thought, okay, fair enough. On we go.
He does have a very Commando Comics view of Bolt Action and where it sits. And I suppose that comes across, like you say, everybody's always fighting all the time. It's fascinating because this sort of artwork I recognize from the likes of the Commando Comics and that era, the Action Comics and those sort of things, where it was very bombastic, very over the top, because I suppose they're trying to tell a dynamic story, capturing a piece of action in the moment. You would also often see it on box art, the likes of Airfix and Revel and these sort of things. They would have very dynamic illustrations of whatever the armored vehicle or aircraft was, and generally in flames in some cases or dropping bombs. I think some of the artwork for the likes of those these days have become a bit more sanitized, and you don't see as much of the explosions and the war actually happening around them. But it's a fascinating snapshot, I suppose, as to the direction they wanted to take from the beginning.
Yeah, I was really influenced, of course, as a child by all that sort of Airfix box art. I just found it absolutely thrilling and inspiring, of course, to make the model. On the model. But my dad was in the RAF, so he approved of me making model aircraft, but less so of the tanks. Infantrymen were pongos, brown jobs, Anyway, and he never really got over my interest in the army. Yeah, I love that. And also the early work of Ron Embleton and Gerry Embleton, of course, in Look and Learn magazine, which long after I was too old to read that stuff, I was buying it for the Ron Embleton centre spreads, which were fantastic.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. What medium do you work in? Because these have a very, like say, comic book distinct look. You can see brushstrokes in places. Is it a sort of a acrylic paint job or
it's acrylic ink? I work with acrylic ink, which is fantastic stuff. You can go, you can work from light to dark, and then back from dark to light. So it's a technique that I developed really to make amendments in the illustrations I was doing in earlier techniques that I used when I worked for children's books. Mm-hmm. And then I liked the amendments better than the original work underneath. So I thought, when I started to work for Osprey, I thought, right, time to get to grips with this acrylic stuff. And so that's what I use now, and that's what I've used really all the time. All the military stuff is done like that.
My generation and younger probably younger actually, will more or less only know acrylic paint. But it's relatively recent. It's within the last 40, 50 years it really sort of came through. And so people before that would probably have been more used to using oils or enamels and that sort of thing. So I imagine when you started with the acrylic paints, it was a step up from previous sort of things. Have you found that your techniques changed over the years then, changing from paints to inks or?
Yeah, it's one of those things that happens to you. You go through sort of periods of different sort of techniques. You go through periods of sort of feeling differently about the stuff you do. Mm-hmm. When you do as much as I've done, really, I could probably trace various periods of your life. It sounds pretentious, isn't it? But you go through various phases, but the acrylic sort of led me through all of them. It's a great technique. Of course, nowadays, I don't think that many people use paint. I think most young illustrators are working on tablets and things, which I have tried. I did some box art for War Games Atlantic using my new iPad, but it took so long. It was just so long, and it's so deliberate. You don't get any happy accidents that you get with paint. Paint sort of feeds you, which I didn't feel was happening with the acrylic stuff. With the laptop stuff. Yeah. And it also means you have original paintings that you can sell to people, which which you don't have when you've got an iPad. Buy this iPad with a fixed screen. No, it doesn't work like that.
It's a very different skill set as well, I suppose. And we've seen this within wargaming with the likes of traditional sculpted figures compared to a lot of stuff these days is done via a whole host of CAD tablet sort of work as well.
Good though, isn't it?
It's amazing where our hobby has gone. Riding with the coattails of others.
Yeah. I started wargaming. Really, it was Don Featherstone's book, Tackle War Games This Way, or something like that. But no, Tackle Model Soldiers This Way. And I was at that age, I was about, how old would it be, about 11, something like that. And I was thinking to myself, maybe it's time I stopped playing with my toy soldiers. I'm getting a little bit, old for this. And my dad was giving me the eye. And I was thinking, perhaps it's... Anyway, and then out came this book. And there were men around a table of toy soldiers in cardigans smoking pipes. And I thought, hang on, this is a hobby. This isn't just me fooling around. This is a hobby. And what a hobby it's turned into. It's absolutely fantastic.
It's the likes of Don and then Peter Gilder and that era really moved things on. WRG, the research group, sort of codifying styles of ancient wargaming, and that period in the 60s into the 70s more or less has set the standard for things that we take as accepted today, be it measurements or even the sort of ground scale and footprints that units should have. They were all based off that same period. So it was really not just genre defining, but hobby defining, I suppose, to a great extent as well.
But it's to me, it's such a fantastic hobby because it feeds you in a way that so many others don't. It's so deep and it's so enormous, and there's so much to study and so much to make. To me, the actual wargaming part to me is just the tiny, tiny bit of moss on the top of the iceberg. That's the social bit where you can meet your pals and show off a bit. The rest of it is the quiet time when you're actually doing stuff. God, it's calming, it's feeding, it's good stuff, it's grounding. I like it. I'll never stop doing it.
That's what we love to hear.
It's the truth, isn't it, Gerry?
Oh, well, 100%. As anybody who ever sees any of my collection will testify, there's no stopping me. Speaking of the studying side of things, then, obviously a lot of your artwork is very grounded, historically accurate. How much research does it take if you're being given a piece to do? Is there a lot of lead up time where you're going, okay, I need to put a World War II scene together? It's going to be this particular point in early war. It's in France. Where am I going to find the uniforms and the exactness? Do you have a library's worth of historical books, or is it down to the library every now and again to go and have a look?
No, I mean, I do have quite a big library of that sort of stuff here. But when you're working for Osprey, for example, all these illustrations in Bolt Action 3 are Osprey illustrations. One of the major tasks of the author is to present an illustrator's brief. It's the sea that historical illustrators swim in anyway, especially if you have a military specialism. So, it's just a question of them sending you some pictures of odd vehicles and things. My favorite source of vehicles are plastic models. So I'll try and make a model of whatever I need, or, it's that sort of thing. But it also depends very much on the art editor that you've got. And I've been privileged to work with Martin Windrow. He's fantastic. But working for Warlord, I was working, of course, with Paul Sawyer. I mean, he is fantastically knowledgeable about all that, and he will pick, he knows what he wants, and he would pick me up on any little thing and say, wait, just about it. Oh yeah. Good point. So illustrators have to be ready to change things, especially in the tiny details. Can't always get everything right. You can't know everything. Because my work has gone from ancient Greeks through to Afghanistan in 20 whatever. So you just can't know that. But you're part of a team, and it's important to remember that. And the other members of the team tell you what to do, really, and you go, yes, sir.
That's the correct way to deal with any order from a superior officer. Just say yes, sir. Do you find probably, I would imagine more so in your earlier work, but was there much back and forth with editors then, where you would submit a piece and they would go, well, this needs to change that, and there was quite an exacting amount of changes, or is it relatively quick these days?
Well, you go through a process. You don't spring a finished piece of artwork onto an editor. You make a sketch, then possibly it's maybe a positional sketch. Then you do a more finished pencil drawing with a lot more detail in it. Once that's been approved, so then they'll show that to the author, possibly, or possibly not. And you work into something that way. And when you finish the pencil, you say to them, right, I'm going to colour. Are you happy with this? And if they say yes, then you go ahead. But if only for business reasons, because Osprey illustrations come with a fixed price on them. No matter how much work or how little work you put into that illustration, that's how much money you're going to get. So you try and feed it through and get it passed and get it checked and get it right through the whole process. And then you're just left with, 10 minute sort of tweak of something.
Yeah. How long would it take for a full color page, roughly? Because obviously we see things like the color plates where it's an individual or several individuals in a group in the Osprey books, but then you see these large, grand, in this case, battle scenes or whatever they might be.
Yeah.
Are they weeks or days?
They kind of vary. Sometimes they flow, really well. When I was working for Osprey, I would work sort of very long days. I would get up early in the morning and just work through them. You can't rush this stuff. It takes as long as it takes. But I would expect to do, from a sort of finished pencil, the painting part of a double page spread, for example, and I work half up. So the painting is half as big again as the illustration that you see. I'd expect to do that in maybe 3 or 4 days.
Okay.
So, inside a week for each one. But then later on, when I started also to do the Paper Soldier thing, I tend to set some of my daytime aside for that. So then everything would take a lot longer. But that's that sort of timescale.
It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure to take time to talk with you today, Peter. Hopefully people at home have enjoyed that as well. I know a lot of us have grown up with Peter's work, and these days there's so much of it about between Osprey and Wargames Atlantic, and a prolific artist and a thoroughly nice man as well.
Oh, gosh. How kind of you. Thank you, Gerry. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
It's the Bolt Action 3rd Edition week here on Tabletop, and with a comment, you could win one of 3 Battle of the Bulge starter sets. We will pick 3 winners, one from the YouTube comments, one from the comments on OnTableTop.com, and one from our Cult of Games members. So you guys get an extra chance to win.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.